In this video, we'll talk about the profound life lessons we can learn from Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan may not have started out as an inspirational speaker, but he sure has a lot to say about life. His life lessons about the things almost every one of us is going through are an eye-opener. So here is the best life advice the boss man has given the audience for a better outlook on life. First up, showing up accounts for 90% of a person's success. Joe Rogan has always emphasized putting discipline over comfort or feeling good. He often talks about conquering a person's inner which isn't an accurate description, but that's how most of us are. We may set our minds to do something but may chicken out or simply give up before even trying. Joe thinks that the reason why we aren't successful most of the time is that we put ourselves within unnecessary boundaries and enclose ourselves in doubts like, I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not fast enough, and whatnot. So Joe's most simple life lesson is discipline. He has no complicated theory about it and simply says that discipline helps get things done. It matters to sit down every day and just try, especially if you're trying to create art. Whether it's writing, drawing, singing, sculpting, or anything else, the way to go is to show up. Show up to work, show up to practice, and grab the moments where you feel like not putting in any work at all. And this advice isn't only for struggling artists or people who think that Jeff Bezos-sized greatness lies at the end of this drill. It's actually for any regular person who works 40 hours a week, drops their kid at school every day, pays the bills, gets the groceries done, and even goes out for a 30-minute walk. This is us trying to be there every day and showing up. It's about throwing out that person inside of you who always wants to stay in the comfort zone. Struggle is good for a fulfilling life, and the simple truth of life is that when you work your ass off, that's when the tree starts to bear fruit. People may come and say, work smart, not hard. That's just another way of creating boundaries. It's all about never being afraid to do a day of hard work. Up next, it's all about being the hero of your own movie. Joe Rogan has always told people to concentrate on what keeps life good and positive. It sounds cliche, but the truths of life are often that simple. One of Rogan's best advice to people is to hold balanced perspectives. If someone's made you the villain of their story, you could at least try to become the hero of yours. You aren't supposed to be someone who always plays the sidekick or gets bullied in high school. This sort of thinking generates from believing that the world is conspiring against you and that you are always meant to come in last. That usually doesn't happen. The world doesn't have time to make you feel terrible about yourself. Maybe sometimes it's just you who are bringing yourself down and downplaying every opportunity. It's important to pretend that you're the lead of this show and invoke a positive attitude that this movie is going to end on your terms. Rogan gives very practical advice to the masses about how they can reflect on themselves. Consider you're part of a show and the camera crew is following you all the time. If that were true, how would you like to portray yourself? What kind of a person do you want to see on the big screen? That kind of puts things in perspective and gives clarity to the kind of person you want to be. Joe Rogan once said that what he loves more than a typical success story is a story in which a person blows everything to hell but then gets their life on track again. Everyone is always rooting for the underdog, but that doesn't mean you can slack off. Think of your life as a documentary and create your own hero, and picture yourself making it to the finish line. Coming up, you can't always be right. That's the hardest thing a person can come to realize about themselves. We can't always be completely right or wrong for that matter. We can't always be that person who brings down judgment upon everyone else. Joe Rogan says that it's okay to be wrong, but what's important is that we admit it to ourselves. Why do we hold ourselves in such esteem? Why do we consider ourselves flawless? Most of all, why do people think that a person in the spotlight can't make a mistake? Joe has learned this lesson the hard way because many times his statements have been taken into a bad light. Some of his statements were bold and offended people, but whether right or wrong, Rogan had to face them. In the Joe Rogan Experience, he sits down with numerous guests, but he can't always account for everyone's accountability. Joe Rogan has admitted openly that he can be wrong. He can invite people who could spread misinformation. But while he can't know everything, he does admit that he gets things wrong but tries to correct them. People on social media, especially motivational speakers, are often subjected to unrealistic expectations of always being right or being society's moral compass. But it's mostly up to us to satisfy our appetite for curiosity and love for the truth when we encounter doubt. Rogan perfectly explains how we should be okay with admitting we're wrong, but should aim to improve constantly. Following up, look at things with a pure heart and mind. The number one thing that will always make our lives go downhill is to approach everything with a negative mindset. That never does anyone any good. Instead, it only harbors a poison that keeps building up inside of us until it consumes us completely. Joe Rogan advises people to keep a pure heart and mind whenever approaching things. People can get a lot of energy and positivity if they just go at something with pure intentions. Rogan gives this life lesson in hopes of making people understand that they're part of a community and we have to act accordingly. It's important to know that you're a good member of the community and that you're doing your part. There's no need to give everyone good or bad points on everything, and sometimes let things be. It's essential to be open to other people's perspectives and give them space to explain themselves. Honesty is great, but it shouldn't come at the cost of hurting people. Joe Rogan gives an amazing example of how we can have a better outlook on others, and that is to let ourselves feel frail sometimes and weigh ourselves against the vastness of the universe. It'll make us realize how small we are compared to the rest of the world, and that invokes humbleness. No matter how big of a star you are or the privilege you were born in, it's important to remember to stick your head to the ground and walk without making a noise. Next up, do not be afraid to take the unconventional path. The greatest struggle of them all, to be okay with not doing what everyone's doing. We're so used to hearing a set path or a roadmap to a certain destination that we have almost forgotten to think outside the box. In his conversation with Dan Carlin, Joe Rogan talked about how regular people perceive the dream life. Rogan explains that we're so used to taking the conventional path that we never wait to dig deep and find out what exactly we want. We create this bubble in our head that we have to work our way towards certain goals, which mainly include a house, a car, a successful love life, and a vacation. Rogan calls this the society trap, where we put aside other bright ideas and simply follow what's been taught to us from the beginning. It's better to work towards a meaningful and fulfilling life rather than a shallow one. Rogan gives real-life examples where he thinks that if making furniture makes you feel good, it's better to do that than being stuck in a cubicle. Next, we have don't let your life be a soul-killing experience. Joe Rogan has a special focus on not turning your life into a soul-killing experience. But what is it actually? Rogan simply defines this as someone who is living in a very unsatisfied life, which makes them full of anger and resentment. That mostly happens when you sketch your life around what people tell you to do and not to do. Joe talks about his life experiences, explaining how he discovered things for himself and found that the system that has been created for us is soul-killing. It doesn't let you explore or discover and keeps you under a tight leash in the name of societal norms. Rogan emphasized the fact that some people just aren't meant to fit in a description or a regular job. For someone who wants to be a comedian, a painter, a musician, or even a voice artist, squeezing themselves into the 9-to-5 prison is like a soul-killing trap. Joe Rogan advises people to beware of these traps and be brave enough to explore unknown territories. That's a wrap for this video. Have you ever found yourself in a tight spot and got help from a motivational speaker? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.